Yo, yo, yo. It's your boy AO, host of Lakers for Life Live. We're going to do a game recap of this crazy game against the Suns. We'll let some people jump in. If you're coming from X, what up? If you're coming from YouTube, what's good? I need the comments in the chat. Make your way over to YouTube. Let's talk about this game because there's a lot to unpack. If you're new to the show, welcome. Subscribe if you're on the YouTube channel. Follow if you're on X. And again, hit us with the comments. Like it or hate it, drop a comment and debate it because what did we watch today? What did we watch today? I just finished up the hitter, and I said on the hitter that this game encapsulated all of the Laker trends that are on the TL right now, all of the narratives that are surrounding the Lakers. This was a tale of two halves, a tale of four quarters. Very, very just exciting but strange game. And I can't say I came out of it feeling good. I don't know about what y'all think, Laker fans, but I did not come out of this feeling good. And it only reaffirmed what I think about this team and that there is a lot of gaps. We're not playing solid basketball. That SRS stat that I keep talking about on this show is telling the story, of where we're at in comparison to these teams in the West. And before we even unpack the game, I know y'all saw the OKC versus Spurs game. That was high level basketball last night. And those are two teams poised in the West that just give us problems. And Grant, mind you, this was a Phoenix team that lost by 50 to the Thunder. So if we're going off our barometer testing again, saying are we contenders? Can we be the best, the elite in the league? We just barely skid past a team that got dropped by 50 against OKC. And that says a lot. I mean, let's jump into it. So the Lakers start the first half with 13 turnovers. LeBron James had 5 in the first quarter. And from the last blowout Phoenix had against us, they create steals and they have points off turnovers. And which really was the tail of the first half and kind of kept them in the game. 36 to 31 points off turnovers, and it was a discrepancy in that first half until we get to the second half and talk about that. 36 to 31 points off turnovers. Phoenix only had 11 steals today. The Lakers had 13, and again, in that second half, we'll talk about it. Phoenix outscored us on the fast break points, 18 to 12. Had 6 more threes than us. We only shot 19% from 3 today, 7 for 37. Couldn't buy a bucket. Phoenix was 13 to 37. You know, they shot better than us overall, even though we got more shot attempts, 48% to 43%. The Lakers, again, missed 10 free throws. That has become a theme with us. Missing free throws. LeBron almost missed and smoked some free throws in the clutch. I don't know why he shot that technical free throw. That could have costed us the game. We rounded out. We finish off with, as a team, 21 turnovers on the night. 13 of those, again, in the first half. Cleaned it up a bit for 8 in the second half. But again, it was a tale of two halves. Luka got it going in the first half, but I wouldn't even say, let's start with Luka. I wouldn't even say he got it going. It was a lot of heliocentric basketball, which we've seen has its pros where he's on, there's a burner happening. And then there's times where he just really, really sucks the rhythm out of the offense with his ground and pound game. That heliocentric play and finding a balance between letting Luka do his thing and be methodical and really be methodical in the half-court offense versus getting out in transition, getting teammates involved, having off-ball action, utilizing DeAndre Ayton, who I thought had a fantastic game and an even better first half. I mean, the guy finished with 20 points, 13 rebounds, 10 for 11 from the field. That efficiency is on another level. It's on another level. But we get away from him. And it goes back to that methodical play Luka has. And I think it's pivotal. And this was, again, what's play. Austin Reeves was not playing today. He's out for a week with the calf strain, which we'll keep our eye on. They say it's nothing to be too concerned about, probably precautionary, but it's just Luka and LeBron today. And we do better in the two-man games versus having the full trio on display. Smart got the start, and I thought he started off, set the defensive tone, had some bonehead plays in the second half. But you see what a difference having a defender in that starting lineup makes. And while we went out and got an early lead, we definitely squandered it at the end of that first quarter. And it was really Phoenix controlling the pace, the tempo, and the game in that first half until we had a nice close to the second quarter and brought that game back to dead even at the half. But Luka on the night finishes with 29 points. Again, a lot of that damage was done in the first half. 3 rebounds, only 6 assists, 7 for 25 on the night. Shot 28% from the field, 2 for 14 from 3. 14%. That's a lot of shots. And when it's not going down, that's when we need to find balance between that, again, heliocentric basketball and getting others involved, like in Ayton. Running some play action two-man with LeBron, who finished with 26 points tonight, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 4 assists, 8 for 17 from the field, not the most efficient, 1 for 5 from 3. And again, 5 turnovers in that first quarter, finished with 8 turnovers on the night. Luka had 6. So I thought, all in all, Luka did not have a great game today. You guys tell me in the chat, if you're on YouTube, drop that comment. I want to hear from you all. Am I tripping? But I did not like Luka's game today. And it's been a theme. You know, I was gone for a minute, didn't get to watch the Spurs game live, had to watch the playback while I was out in London. But a lot of the same themes surfaced. And it's those athletic teams that have defenders that make us turn the ball over, that give us problems. These things are trending more and more in these losses. There's a reason why our losses are double-digit losses in every single one. We haven't had a close game in our losses, which is why our SRS is so low. And again, SRS is your net rating adjusted for strength of schedule. And we're barely hovering around 0. 1 to 2 points. Typically, elite teams are above that 5+ range. You see what OKC, San Antonio, Denver, Houston, what their ratings look like. But it's losing big in our losses, not being able to take care of, games that we're supposed to win by a healthy margin. And we saw that today if we go to the second half now. Well, before we get to the second half, Vando, there was finally a Vando sighting today. That's a big point. That's takeaway number 2. So there's Luka's heliocentric, play, number 1. How effective is it when it's on, but how ineffective is it when he's off? How do we find the balance? Number 2 big takeaway is JJ Redick finally played Jared Vanderbilt. And it took injuries, and it took this, we are a bad defensive team. The net rating of that starting lineup is not good. The net rating with specific players like Rui, Ayton, and LeBron together is not good. And that we have near 0 defense in these last 10 games or so. It took that level of desperation for JJ to finally play Vando. And he proved today that you don't need to have all of the spacing in the world or a big offensive game to make an impact. And there are other things you can do to win a basketball game. He finished with 7 points, 7 rebounds on the night. 6 of those 7 rebounds were offensive rebounds, 2 steals, a block. Finished +7. And again, we can tell, a narrative with a plus or minus both ways. But just from the eye test, if you were watching the game, you could see a difference in the activity when he was on the floor. And he was a big, reason in his spurts that we got ahead, got back in the game, staying around Phoenix. I thought he was great in that second half. Jake LaRavia turned up the defense in that second half as well with him. But the fact that it took JJ this much, and he still wasn't convinced that, we can't play everyone on the roster, he's just going to have to sit out the minutes, is you don't have any defenders on the roster. You have to find a way as a coach to play people that are defensive oriented and build lineups around that so that you can have a balance. And that's what gets me is JJ's stubbornness. He's so steadfast in his decisions that I think it's beginning to be his Achilles heel. He's a very reactive coach. For how analytical JJ says he is, or how much he looks at the numbers, it's appalling because it doesn't translate to his decision making. He continues to run that same starting lineup with Rui, LeBron, Ayton, and we've seen it. We're casual fans. This is for fans by fans. We see the net rating of the starting group, of that trio. Even before LeBron came back, we saw the net rating was negative with Rui and Ayton on the floor at the same time. And we saw usage decrease with the Banshees, and he continued to play these starting groups and these player big minutes when there were some clear gaps and holes. And I get it, Marcus Smart was out for some time, but wouldn't that be a bigger reason to play Vando so you could get some semblance of what Marcus Smart was providing on the defensive end? And Vando's bigger. He is a good rebounder. And I'm not saying today's play is going to be something that Vando can sustain, but for 10 to 15 minutes a game, to have that energy to muck it up, make teams uncomfortable with what they're trying to do, there's room for that in this rotation. And JJ needs to get his head out of his ass and bend a bit, because there's no way everyone on that coaching staff is saying, hey, we're looking good right now, even in the wins. You're doing everything you need to do as a coach to get us better. And when you don't work on process and you get these wins and you're hot, there's that euphoric feeling. There's that euphoric feeling that we're playing really well. We're second in the West. But when you double click into the metrics, data doesn't lie. These are wins off of play over our heads. Big Austin Reeves games, big Luka games, some fringe play from our bench. This isn't good process or organization or basketball. And a lot of people on the TL, influencers, that probably been watching the Lakers for 6 years or so. Oh, don't worry. We're talking about process in the first 25, 30 games. Yes, we are. That's how you build good habits, is by process, is by experimenting with the right lineups, is by injecting defensive energy and doubling down on that, finding ways to develop your players, not killing their confidence on the bench, and then front running with these wins. And I think this lack of accountability is what really is pissing me off on the TL. And yes, we won today, but I'm talking about from a macro level. It's just, you got to have accountability. I'm not a front running fan. If, in fact, when we're playing well and there's that euphoric feeling, I kind of lean more pessimistic. To some, it seems pessimistic, but that's when I get more into the details. What's working? What's not? What's a foundation we can actually build on? We haven't built on a foundation just yet. LeBron's still ramping up. JJ Redick has not found synergy between the trio of Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Luka. Really, in fact, there's not a lot of synergy on that offensive end. For how much offensive firepower we have, we're not I wouldn't say we're an elite offensive team. We are some games, but then you see the drop-off when we're not a good offensive team, time and time again, especially in those losses, or where we keep, teams in the balance when we should be out with a healthy lead, sitting our star players. That hasn't happened. And when you're not that elite offensively, you're not getting buckets like that in rhythm and flow and organized offense. And again, I think JJ thinks our organized offense is just running PNR with no off-ball action. And it's a ground and pound game from Luka, and that's what you're relying on. That's what exacerbates the losses and what brings you down to earth. He hasn't brought synergy, and he's not playing or empowering the players that do bring energy to come in the game and make an impact. And again, it took Austin Reeves to sit out, for Marcus Smart to insert into the starting lineup, and these bad defensive metrics over the last 10 or so games to finally play Vando, who's gotten DNPs, Bronny James, Dalton Connect, Nick Smith Jr., they've all gotten minutes before Vando. which is unreal. And I think says a lot about JJ Redick as a coach. His Achilles heel, I said it, is going to be how stubborn he is and his lack of bending and getting ahead of the trend, especially when you're that analytical as a coach. And it's something to look out for. Because when you have a bad SRS and a bad foundation you're building on, that's when you get those 4-1 playoff losses to a team like Minnesota when you're favored. And I'm not big on the 17-6, we're second in the West when we're like a game ahead of half these teams in the top 6. We were the 5th seed coming into this game. So that ranking and the seeds don't matter. You have to double click into the metrics. And the metrics say a lot. So great that Vando played. We'll see how long this can sustain. But I think put with the right lineups, Ayton has a midi. You can play him alongside Ayton and not have the ideal spacing, but enough to keep a defense honest to play Vando. And no, he's not the solution, but he's something with what we have today. It's hard to find a trade. Rob Pelinka has to do something about that, but until that time comes, you have to utilize what you have. So while I'm glad Vando played today, it was almost everyone that's a Laker fan on the TL could have told you that. It was on the TL for so long, and it took how many games? 9, 10 DMPs, and this atrocious defense to finally get him out the bag. So Vando, I think, again, second big takeaway, that was Vando playing. Let's see if his confidence continues to build. I think he's been a stand-up professional for going through what he's gone through and coming out and performing, bringing energy to the squad. Hats off to Vando. I think game ball was with him today. Those offensive rebounds, disruption he created. But then, so Vando transitioning now into that third quarter where we go into the fourth, where we go on a 24-0 run, and I think it was about a 30-2 run. Blew this game open. Vando was a big part of that. Jake LaRavia came on defensively, wasn't scoring the ball, but was very active defensively during that run, which helped us break open. And I thought Gabe Vincent, I don't think he's the right player for us, but he did have some strips, some good defensive plays. I think he fouls a lot, and it's just due to his size. He had a couple threes, or a three maybe. I think it was a couple, but he's not the solution either. But you play the Banshees, you play people that have energy. And I think what that 24-0 run showed was Luka wasn't in a lot of that run. But defensive energy does win you games and can break a game open. It can create good looks. It can get you out in transition. Stopping teams, scoring on the other end. Jackson Hayes was great in transition. Some huge dunks today. His activity was fantastic. And again, that could give you easy buckets. You may not have your full offensive firepower out there, but defense does change a game. Now we go on this 24-0 run. We're up by 20 points. Fast break. We outlet the ball. Open layup for Smart. He throws the ball behind his head to Vando. And I get it's an unselfish play, but you have an open layup with all of the momentum to go up by 22. And after that miss, Phoenix goes on this ridiculous run to close out the game, to get it to where they were up by 1 with seconds remaining, because Smart does another stupid layup instead of winding the clock down, playing out the clock. And if it wasn't for that stupid boneheaded Dylan Brooks technical, which LeBron missed a free throw, we got bailed out with that three-pointer and he got fouled. I think we very much could have lost this game. And when that run happened, Rui was back in, Luka was back in, and the offensive play and pace we were playing with completely shifted. We went back to square one again. And this is where, if you watch my hitters on X and YouTube, that was a big focal point of my recap, was this heliocentric basketball. We saw it on display and it got us out the game. We almost lost the game with the errant threes Luka was putting up, getting into the shot clock and starting our actions with 4 or 5 seconds. not playing with pace. We're playing to drive the clock out versus keeping the aggression going, the foot on the gas, and keeping the pressure on Phoenix. And it just goes back to, I think, what Stephon Castle said. If you keep going at the Lakers, even if we have runs, you keep going at them, we will slip. We will take our foot off the gas. We think we're a lot more elite than what we really are as a team. And that's exactly what Phoenix did. Got back in the game. Dillon Brooks hits that three, puts them up. And we were on the brink of losing this game. So for any fan out there that's going, hey, we got the win. It was, we got the win. Be happy. Y'all can say that. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. But y'all got to get into the details a bit more because this was an ugly game. I ain't tipping my hat on anything. We had bright spots, underutilized spots. But it's that lack of energy from this team that thinks they can flip the switch. We're not those guys. We're not OKC. We're not elite. Where you can flip a switch on and off and just cruise. We're not that. And if that's the way this team wants to continue to play during the season, we have a rude awakening coming in the playoffs because that basketball don't win playoff series. It's continuous execution, putting your foot on the gas. Even in OKC's loss last night, they were in the game, very much in the game. The Spurs had to scrap that one out, and they did. They have the players to scrap it out. But OKC was right in the mix, and that goes back to they have 2 losses on the year. One was to Portland where they were up 20 and lost the lead, and then this one by 2 points versus all of our losses are double digits. So think about that. This style of play is just not working. And it goes back to just my last takeaway from this game. And we touched on it a bit. But I'm starting to think JJ Redick is a bit in over his head. And again, he's a rookie coach. He's got to learn. There's a ramp up for him too. But I think he's biting off more than he can chew. And we'll see how this team does as the season progresses. We get more reps with our team, but there's rotations that he's missing. This starting lineup is a mess. He tips his hat on spacing, but in that same sense, those lineups where he thinks they're spacing they're not good. Rui has not been good in that starting lineup, yet he continues to play him. Gabe continues to play big minutes when you got guys like Vando, a guy like Adu Thero, who you can develop. The fact that he hasn't been able to find any synergy really on offense. It's either a Luka burner, it's a one action with no counter, and it's just straight P&R with no off-ball action. There hasn't been something that's cohesive, that's fluid, that's flowing. And he's had now, since the Luka trade last year, and we're what are we, 18 and 7, so 25 games into this season. It's a decent sample size. And we keep saying we have the potential to be in high-powered offense, potential to be elite, a top 3 offense. It hasn't come yet. There's games where we can barely scrap 100 to 110 points. Today we had 116. I get it. Austin Reeves hasn't been there, but he hasn't been playing well. A lot of our offense has been created from those free throws. We still get to the line. But we saw when the fouls aren't happening, you need to rely on offensive schemes and actions. And it can't just be a 2-man P&R. And it can't be Luka is heliocentric. And I'm not saying Luka, trying to criticize him too much. He's an elite offensive player, but there needs to be balance. And when something's working in Ayton, he can't just be a release valve. There's some times where it's like, we got to go create offense for Ayton because he's our most efficient player right now that can score in multiple spots. The midi, within the paint, on the short roll. Like, he is a great offensive player, and sometimes you need to ride that when he has a mismatch. And I don't think the offense is flowing. It's taken some pretty heroic games where we've had to play above our head a bit, and it goes back to process. We'll be talking about this in game 60, in game 65, in game 70. How have we put together foundation that we can raise our floor with and help us when games get tough, games get tight, defenses tighten up, right? Because we see sometimes when defenses tighten up, there's big athletic players, we're slow to get back. So it puts that much more pressure to ensure that we're executing. We're not turning the ball over because we can't get back on defense, even on a made shot sometimes. So I think I'm really putting the microscope on JJ right now. I haven't liked his coaching. And it's like, oh, here we go again. Scapegoat is JJ. But nah, look at everything that's been talked about on the TL with the starting group, the net ratings, why we're not playing Vando, the defensive intensity. And it takes me to two paths. Either he doesn't know what he's doing and he's in over his head, or the team's not bought in. But both two paths are not positive. So you can slice it either way. But there is going to be a microscope on JJ on how he can put this team together. And it can't just be off of heroic performances. We have to start building cohesiveness and synergy. And we have to do it with the roster we have today. And it's not a perfect roster by any means. Rob has some work to do to get us those 3-and-D type players that we need desperately on this roster. But we still have some stuff that we don't need to, in emergency, break glass. Vando is the example. Starting to develop Thero. What player development have we had with JJ Redick? And if you're in YouTube and you could drop a comment, let me know. What player development have we had under JJ Redick? Thero's a great example that I have my eye on. Max Christie was already developing prior to JJ's arrival. And JJ at one point last year benched Max and threw him out of the rotation. And until there were injuries and Max was, again, through desperation, put back into that lineup, he exploded. I don't put that on JJ and developing him. And that's that reactive approach once again. We see what Max Christie's doing in Dallas. He's the type of player we need on this roster today. But I feel like to kind of summarize for how analytical JJ is, he's a very reactive coach. He's very stubborn in what he deploys. And it takes a lot to force him out of his thought process and thinking. And I think I don't know if it's the coaching staff where they don't have the cachet to change his mind, to have him look at things differently. But I'm not seeing this analytical brain that he has. I think it's analytical in what he wants to see and how it aligns to envision versus what he is seeing and how you change your approach when the numbers aren't going the way you want them to with what you originally envisioned. And it's okay if your original vision doesn't work. The real, merit is how you pivot and how effectively and fast do you pivot. And I think it's taken him a very long time to pivot and get out of these jams. And again, I'm not saying Vando is going to be the answer all year, but it's not he's not a break the glass type of player. How do we optimize that energy that he does bring with the players we do have and the offensive firepower we do have? If we had synergy between LeBron James, Austin Reeves, and Luka, you can play multiple defenders in those lineups, and let them kind of take care of the offensive load, still provide off-ball action. There are things you can do. There's more creativity to be had than what we've seen in these first 25 games. And that's my biggest point. Like, if you're in win now mode and you're seeing these teams like OKC and the Spurs and the Houstons, Denver's out there, this is win now right now because they are poised to have good years coming. We can see that now. The Lakers, on the other hand, we have Luka, but we need to still build around him. So we're theorizing hypotheticals on what a good team can look like that we still have to build. So you need to optimize what you have now. Hope Rob can work around the fringes and bring us players that we need. But that just puts more pressure on, I think, JJ. And sure, he got the extension, but I wouldn't put it past Mark Walter to kind of put him on the hot seat. Is this the right coach? And it's not saying JJ is a bad coach. He's learning. He's had some great moments, but maybe it's not suited for what we need today with what we have in terms of Austin Reeves, Luka, and LeBron. So I'm going to continue to watch that to see how he continues to tweak the rotation, his lineups. Hopefully Austin Reeves' injury is not too serious and we can get more reps with our full roster. Yeah, Rings and Things show an absolute insane finish to this game, but never should have ended that way. And that's my boy, Rings and Things. We're going to do some work together and get on some shows, but I agree. It was an insane finish. We blew that 24-0 run up by 20. Again, Marcus Smart smokes that breakaway layup and instead turns the ball over, and it was game over after that, meaning Phoenix got right back in this game. A game where we should have just made that layup up 22, got another stop, and they might have thrown in the white flag. And it's taking that foot off the gas and thinking we're this team that can just not play hard and come out with the dub. And we settle for these 3-point, 4-point, 5-point wins. And I think Rings and Things, you put up this clutch stat, we're 8-1 in the clutch. But half of these clutch games is because we were kind of lollygagging around all game to make it a clutch game under 5 points within the last 5 minutes. So that record in itself doesn't really resonate with me, that we're good in the clutch. It just means we weren't putting forth the effort. We were doing just enough. Teams would staying in the game, and we did just enough to finish. But against elite teams, that's not going to work, especially in a playoff series. So shout out Rings and Things show. Appreciate the comment. But a lot to be desired with this team. Check out his show too, the Rings and Things show. Subscribe to him. He's got some good breakdowns. Again, we're going to be doing some more shows together. No doubt, that's my guy. But I'm just not in a way where I can just celebrate this W, especially in the way it finished off. And it took some very bizarre plays at the end of the game. A Dylan Brooks technical, a foul on a 3-point shot for us to get this W tonight. And again, I said it in my hitter, this game really encapsulated all of the trends, all of the narratives around the Lakers. I think it exposed a lot of our gaps still, even in a W. And as the schedule gets tougher, all of this stuff will get magnified. All of this stuff will get amplified. And then we can't act brand new then because we know about it now. All the people that are saying, oh, it's game 25. Why are you tripping? You talking about organization, this and that? Yeah, because this is what builds elite teams to get ready for the playoffs. That's what the OKCs are doing. That's what the Spurs are building. That's what Denver has continually done. And we're just not that team to just be taking games for granted and just cut that up to it is what it is. Have some accountability. That's what I challenge you, like all the Laker fans that watch the show, that rock with me. Again, tap in, subscribe, like, hit me with comments on X. I respond to all of them. I love hearing other opinions, but I challenge everyone that's listening and watching right now. Hold the team to a higher accountability. Don't settle. Don't settle for just the win, especially if your barometer is we think this team is a contender or can at least compete against the best. If that's your barometer, these types of wins, you take them all day. You always want the dub. But when you start to see trends over these wins and these trends magnified in these losses, you have to start thinking of these things in more depth. And that's my biggest thing. I'm not a front-running fan. Again, I'm more pessimistic as I see more potential. That's when we get into more of the details. And this team has a lot to work on. And I'll tell you again, my barometer is I do see potential in this team. And I do think we can compete against the top teams in the West. But we need to hold this team to higher accountability. And that includes our stars. That includes Luka. It's okay to say Luka didn't have had a bad game. It's okay to say that his heliocentric play hurt us in particular games. It's okay to say that. Like, just because they're stars doesn't mean they're bulletproof. In a game like today, I think Luka's play almost lost us this game. Could have lost us this game. Outside of all the myriad of other things that we talked about. And it goes back again to that synergy. Can JJ find synergy and find a balance between that style of play, that hardened type of play, versus the firepower we have around Luka with what we have today? Those are my biggest takeaways. So we'll continue to see how this team progresses. A bit of a lighter schedule, I believe, coming up before it gets tough. But a lot's to talk about with the Lakers. So stay locked in with me. Stay tapped in. I try to go live as much as I can. Stay tapped in on the hitters. Just engage. Again, we're a new community. This is for fans, by fans. I'm just a guy like you that just tries to articulate my opinion in the best way possible. And I'm not right all the time by any means. I love banter. I love to talk. Let's see both sides to the equation, and let's rap, But we're building this channel, and we're going to continue to push through, and let's see what this Laker team can do. So again, like it or hate it, drop a comment and debate it. Peace out, y'all.